Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved. Niccolò Machiavelli, The Prince. What if I told you that the strongest form of power isn't money, but fear? From the days when kings wielded swords to the era when rulers wielded cameras, the principle is the same. Whoever controls fear controls the people. Chaos is the stage where power renews itself, not through destruction, but through the manipulation of insecurity. No throne is more solid than one supported by collective panic. The people fear emptiness more than tyranny. That's why, when order dissolves, they cry out for authority. Chaos, when well managed, doesn't destroy governments, it strengthens them. Machiavelli knew that brute force only imposes, but fear persuades. And it is in the persuasion of fear that the most enduring rule is born, that in which the people believe that power is their salvation. Chaos is an art. It's not anarchy, but orchestration. The skilled ruler knows that constant calm weakens the people's vigilance, but controlled unrest keeps them alert, dependent, and obedient. A well-managed crisis can earn more loyalty than a century of prosperity. Fear must be kept alive, not excessively, lest it destroy the state, but sufficiently so that subjects don't feel too free. In modern times, chaos is digital, psychological, and daily. It comes not from swords, but from headlines. It springs not from battlefields, but from news feeds. It is managed by elites who have understood the ancient logic of power and have simply changed the means. Terror is now symbolic, and the battlefield is the mind. The death of a man, the collapse of a stock market, the manufactured panic on social media, all serve the same purpose: to reinforce the idea that citizens need to be protected from something, and that this protector must be obeyed without hesitation. Thus, chaos, once an enemy of power, has become its most loyal ally, because fear, when well cultivated, does not breed rebellion, it breeds order. And the prince who masters the art of chaos never needs to justify his rule. The people, driven by the terror of losing it, justify it through it. Fear, as the architecture of government. No empire was built solely on laws, speeches, or promises. All lasting power is born of an invisible engineering: fear. It is fear that disciplines, unites, and shapes human chaos. Brute force can conquer territories, but it is fear that builds borders within the mind, those that people never cross, even without guards or chains. Machiavelli understood that obedience requires no faith, only fear. Fear is a universal language. It needs no translation, convinces even skeptics, and maintains control even when love and loyalty dissolve. "It is safer to be feared than loved," he wrote, not out of cruelty, but out of lucidity. Love is fickle, dependent on gratitude. Fear is constant, born of instinct. The prudent ruler knows that fear must be engineered, not improvised. Absolute panic breeds rebellion, but measured fear creates stability. A people who fear external chaos will accept internal rigor. When the threat comes from without, the ruler becomes the shield. When it comes from within, he becomes the judge. In both cases, fear legitimizes their power. The most enduring regimes have always known how to balance terror and tranquility. Rome used public executions not only to punish, but to remind ordinary citizens of the price of disobedience. Medieval monarchies fueled legends of treason and heresy to justify their divine authority. And today, in times of digital democracies, fear is mass-produced. Economic crises, pandemics, political threats, all instruments of the same project, transforming insecurity into consent. But the most effective fear isn't the one that comes from above. It's the one that the people themselves reproduce among themselves. When each citizen fears speaking, dissenting, or thinking outside the tribe, the state no longer needs to censor. The collective does so spontaneously. Fear becomes a reflex, and control becomes invisible. This is why modern politics no longer needs authoritarian kings. It only needs narratives that keep anxiety alive. An undefined enemy, a war that never ends, a crisis that never resolves, a danger that never proves itself, is the perfect cement for a stable architecture of power. Fear, when well designed, transforms the ruler into a guardian and the subject into an accomplice. The people believe they are being protected, when in fact they are being molded. And while they cry out for security, they deliver precisely what power has always desired: the freedom to govern without resistance. The chaos industry. How fear is manufactured. Contemporary chaos is not spontaneous. It is produced, packaged, and distributed with the precision of a luxury product. We live in the age of panic economy, where fear is the most profitable asset in the political and media market. Wars, pandemics, financial crises, polarizations, they all serve the same purpose: to keep citizens in a permanent state of alert, docile, and predictable. Machiavelli would have understood the mechanism perfectly. In his time, the prince needed to create tension to legitimize his authority. In ours, this function has been outsourced to information corporations, algorithms, and political parties that have discovered that fear breeds engagement, and engagement breeds power. What was once the rhetoric of the throne is now the programming of the screen. The logic is simple and infallible: create the enemy, amplify the risk, sell salvation. Every headline, every alarming graph, every polarized discourse is a cog in this controlled theater. Panic is cultivated like a garden, with precise doses of indignation and hope. Too much fear paralyzes. Too much fear loses the audience. It's necessary to calibrate the anguish, keeping it alive enough to generate dependence, but never intense enough to inspire revolt. What was once orchestrated by ministers and courtiers is now driven by political advertising agencies and data analysts. The new Machiavellianism is algorithmic. Platforms fuel chaos because they've discovered that conflict retains attention more than harmony. Hate is the true digital gold: cheap to produce, easy to spread, impossible to satisfy. Every citizen unwittingly becomes a soldier of collective fear, sharing rumors, amplifying rhetoric, attacking adversaries. The modern state hardly needs to lie. It simply lets the masses multiply their own illusions. Just as the Prince of Florence manipulated rumors to keep the court divided, today's narrative engineers shape public perception with the most powerful tools ever invented: the instant emotions and constant distraction. And the most perverse thing is that fear has become pleasure. There's a kind of ecstasy in indignation, a sense of belonging that replaces modern loneliness. People unite not by ideals, but by shared phobias. Chaos offers identity, and identity guarantees submission. The modern prince doesn't need to directly manufacture fear. He simply ensures the machine keeps turning. He knows that as long as the people are entertained by their own panic, there will be no time to question the system that produces it. Chaos has become a spectacle, and fear its ticket. The result is a society that believes it lives in freedom, while repeating, with each new scandal, the same ritual of submission: call for strong leaders, surrender autonomy, and applaud their own vigilance. The theatre of appearances and the government of emotions' power rarely relies on truth. It relies on the impression of truth. From medieval courts to today's digital stages, governing is about putting on a show. The people don't want to understand. They want to feel. They don't seek reason. They seek relief. Therefore, a ruler who controls emotions doesn't need to be just convincing. Machiavelli understood this art with surgical precision. He knew that men judge more by their eyes than by their minds, that they prefer the security of appearances to the uncertainty of reality. The prudent prince, therefore, does not combat illusions. He manages them. He dons the mask of virtue, but carries the cunning of the fox. And the secret lies in doing so with elegance, appearing compassionate when punishing, appearing reluctant when dominating, appearing just when manipulating. In modern politics, this aesthetic of emotion has become a system. Narrative has replaced argument. Image has replaced character. The ruler no longer needs to convince intellectually, he or she only needs to generate sensation. Speeches are calibrated to provoke fear, hope, or anger, any emotion that holds the public's attention. Content is irrelevant, effect is everything. The new prince rules the heart before the mind. He understands that the modern citizen doesn't want to know the truth. He wants to hear the version of truth that comforts him. Thus, power becomes a circular spectacle. The people demand emotion, the ruler delivers performance, and both feed on each other's illusion. Politics becomes theatre, and theatre becomes politics. The media and algorithms complete the scenario. They don't just put on the show, they direct it. Each headline is a curtain that opens on a new act of collective indignation. Each crisis is a carefully rehearsed script of emotions. The logic is Machiavellian. While the public cries, cheers, and hates, power rules without resistance. This is why modern rulers seem more like artists than statesmen. They master the symbolic language of fear and hope. A calculated gesture in front of the cameras is worth more than a well-written law. Silence at the right moment is more effective than an hour-long speech. Power today is exercised not only with decrees, but with precise staging. Ultimately, the rule of emotions is the rule of perception. The prince who controls the imaginary controls the people, because the people obey not what is real, but what they believe to be real. And when this belief is constantly shaped, power becomes absolute, not because it is feared, but because it is felt. The modern state no longer needs to suppress freedom, it simply needs to choreograph it. And while the people are thrilled, convinced they are participating in a great cause, the ruler watches in silence, knowing that the most solid stability is that built on the illusion of choice. Tragedy as a tool. Every society reveals its true face not in days of peace, but in the minutes following a tragedy. Charlie Kirk's death was one of those moments. Instead of mourning, the world reacted with spectacle. The blood had barely dried before it was already becoming fuel for speeches, hashtags, and narratives. Tragedy ceased to be human and became utilitarian. And this transformation accurately reflects our times. For Machiavelli, no public death is innocent. When the people mourn, power calculates. When the people are outraged, power negotiates. The assassination of a politician is not just an individual act. It is an opportunity for symbolic reorganization. It redefines moral boundaries, reignites the need for authority, and legitimizes new forms of control. The chaos that tragedy provokes is the clay from which the modern prince molds obedience. Consider what happened. On one side, they celebrated his death as the fall of an enemy. On the other, they transformed him into a martyr. Neither side sought justice. They sought moral dominance. The collective commotion was converted into political capital. Every headline, every reaction video, every outraged post functioned as a small factory of fear and identity. The public believed they were participating in a debate, but in reality, they were being programmed to choose one side, to hate the other, and to surrender their lucidity in exchange for belonging. The media quickly grasped the value of this spectacle. The repeated images, the heated commentary, the contradictory versions, all designed to keep the audience on edge. Crime became a series, fear became a commodity, and the more death was discussed, the less reflection was placed on the system that exploited it. Chaos, once again, was tamed for the benefit of the order that generated it. From a Machiavellian perspective, the prudent ruler observes this process without moralizing, only with calculation. He understands that public tragedies are inevitable, but what ultimately decides political fate is who defines their meaning. If an adversary dies, it's not enough to mourn or punish. It's necessary to narrate. Controlling the sense of fear is controlling the direction of power. That's why great leaders, from Caesar to Churchill, have always mastered the art of tragedy. They knew that collective panic, if precisely guided, could strengthen the state more than any military victory. Public commotion is an invisible battlefield, and those who win it are not the most just, but the quickest to transform horror into purpose. Charlie Kirk's death wasn't just a crime, it was a mirror. It showed how much modern politics feeds on the spectacle of fear, and how ordinary citizens, driven by the emotions of others, become complicit in their own manipulation. In a society trained to react before thinking, tragedy is the most effective instrument of government. Because the moment the people feel fear, they don't look for someone to blame, they look for leaders. And it is at that moment that the true prince reveals himself. The Prince's Handbook for the 21st century. The 21st century prince rules not by sword or decree. He rules by perception. His throne is not made of marble, but of pixels. His army does not march, it communicates. And the battlefield where he conquers power is not physical, but emotional. The new ruler does not need to dominate territories. He needs to dominate narratives. He understands that fear is the new form of sovereignty, invisible, constant, and profoundly effective. In a world saturated with information, strength lies not in telling the truth, but in select what the people should fear. It is this fear that organizes beliefs, justifies restrictions, and legitimizes power. The modern prince understands that there is no stability without tension. A completely calm society is a dangerous society. It thinks too much, demands too much, wants too much. Fear, when moderated, creates cohesion. It is the invisible glue between ruler and ruled. But contemporary Machiavellianism demands subtlety. A ruler who uses raw fear is seen as a tyrant. One who disguises it as virtue is applauded. Control must be clothed in protective clothing, surveillance presented as security, censorship as social responsibility, manipulation as care. Absolute power today is not imposed, seduces. The skillful prince manages chaos like a banker manages credit. He dispenses small doses of panic to keep the people dependent on the stability he himself offers. He understands the psychological cycle of fear. First, create a visible threat. Then, present himself as the only one capable of containing it. Thus, the ruler becomes simultaneously the arsonist and the firefighter, the causer and the healer. Mastery of appearance is his chief virtue. He must learn to seem human enough to be loved and distant enough to be feared. Its strength lies in controlled theatricality, calculated gestures of empathy, rehearsed indignation, strategic silences. Every movement is a signal to the collective unconscious. Every public emotion is a tool of social engineering. And above all, the modern prince must understand that the most stable power is that which does not seem to be able. When the people believe they are choosing, the ruler can do whatever he wants. When fear is internalized, there is no need for coercion. When chaos is continuous, obedience becomes habit. Machiavelli advised the princes of Florence to study war as their only art. If I were writing today, I would say, study chaos. Because chaos, in the 21st century, is the permanent and invisible war that sustains all others. It does not destroy the state. It keeps it alive, pulsating, necessary. The prince who understands this needs neither worship nor strength. It is enough for him narrative control and fear management. The rest will come on its own. Obedience disguised as loyalty, surveillance sold as security, and freedom voluntarily exchanged for psychological comfort. This is the new handbook of power. The 21st century prince does not fear chaos, he rules it.